So I don't do a lot of Trump rants. I'm not an ever-Trumper. I'm not trying to make a mountain out of every molehill. I want people to understand that when I get mad, when I rant, it's for a real thing. It's for a real outrage. And this is a real outrage. So, you know that on Saturday morning, a gunman killed a state lawmaker in Minnesota, and her husband also shot a state senator in Minnesota and his wife, and reportedly visited two other homes of Minnesota Democratic state lawmakers, but they either weren't home or didn't answer the door. Okay, this is a tragedy. This is a politically motivated shooting. This is an assassination. This is bad, okay? And in situations like this, in the past, a president, regardless of party, would call the governor of the state to express condolences and see if there's anything that he could do to be helpful. The answer is almost always there isn't, but it's, the part of the president's job is to be the consoler in chief. Okay. Donald Trump on Sunday was asked whether he had called Minnesota Governor Tim Walz yet, and he responded this way. Quote, "Well, it's a terrible thing. I think he's a terrible governor. I think he's a grossly incompetent person, but I may call him. I may call other people too." Now, just in case you thought that was a one-off, that Trump was caught off guard, he didn't know what to say, and that he was going to walk it back, and no, because on the way back from Canada on Air Force One, he was again asked about calling Tim Walz, and he said this. He told reporters this: "I don't really call him. I think the governor of Minnesota is so whacked out, I'm not calling him. Why would I call him?" He also referred to Walz as a mess. Okay, so this is totally and completely unacceptable for an American president. That is not a partisan statement. That is a human being statement. Because you cannot attack the governor of a state who has just seen 4 members of its state legislature specifically targeted and 1 member of the state legislature killed. You cannot say, "I'm not going to call him because I don't like him." Because this is beyond politics, right? This isn't about politics. This is about doing the right thing as a human being and doing the right things in terms of leadership for this country. All right, I'm going to go into all this in more detail in one sec. I want you to think about subscribing to this channel today. I want you to become a subscriber because I'm not going to rant every day. I'm really not. I know ranting gets people subscribers. I'm not a ranter. I'm going to rant when it matters. This matters. I'm going to call balls and strikes no matter what uniform the batter at the plate is wearing. I don't care if a Democrat president did this, a Republican president, an independent, a libertarian, a green, whatever. This is wrong, and I'm calling it out. That's what I do. When Democrats do something wrong, I'll call it out too. I hope you hit the subscribe button. All right. So, look, what is Donald Trump doing here? Well, first and foremost, he doesn't like Tim Walz. Okay? Tim Walz was the vice presidential nominee under Kamala Harris in 2024. Tim Walz has said plenty of things about Donald Trump that are very unsavory. He has compared him and Donald Trump's vision for America to Nazi Germany. He has said Trump is an authoritarian. He has, after the election, said that Democrats need to get meaner. I actually think that's accurate. But there's lots of reasons Donald Trump, who's, famously thin-skinned, doesn't like Tim Walz. They are not friends. They are not political allies. They are political enemies, okay? And in Donald Trump's world, that's all that matters, right? Donald Trump is not going to have empathy for anyone who isn't already in his camp. I'm not sure if he's going to have empathy anyway. Empathy is not really his strong suit, but he is absolutely not going to have empathy for someone who is not already for him, and Tim Walz is not for him. The other point I'll make is trying to explain Trump's behavior is he doesn't really see himself, and by really, I mean at all, he doesn't see himself as a uniter of the country. He does not see that as a role for himself. Because, look, when something like this happens, right, we don't really say, like, your first reaction is, was it a Democratic lawmaker or a Republican lawmaker who got shot? You're like, oh my God, like someone has been assassinated. An elected official has been assassinated, right? It's not about party. It's about, this is bad. We have a rise in political violence in this country. That, by the way, Donald Trump knows better than anyone, having been the target of not one, but two assassination attempts in 2024. This is a problem, but he doesn't view his role as either consoler-in-chief, empathizer-in-chief, or uniter. He doesn't like Tim Walz. Tim Walz said bad things about him. And so he's not interested in talking to Tim Walz, even if all he would have to say is, look, Governor, it's a terrible tragedy. We're all praying for you. Please let us know if there's anything we could do. That's it. I'm not saying he has to have a long conversation with Tim Walz. I'm not saying he has to have a series of conversations with Tim Walz. But the President of the United States bears a responsibility to understand time and place. And this is neither the time nor the place for Donald Trump to allow his personal grievances with Tim Walz to get in the way of simply saying, we're sorry this happened. This is terrible. We can't live in a country where elected officials are targeted and murdered because of certain beliefs they have. And I know that better than anyone because I was targeted. Okay? It blows my mind that this happens. Now, look, I get it. No one should be shocked that Donald Trump acts this way. He lacks empathy and he lacks that gene to be a uniter. He always has. He always will. That's not going to change. He's a 79-year-old man. It's not going to change now. That said, so I guess I'm not shocked, even though I'm really disappointed. I'm not shocked that he said it. What I guess bothers me the most is that there's a whole hell of a lot of people who rush to Trump's defense on this, who don't say, you know what, I voted for Donald Trump, I support him, but this is bad, right? I support his policies, I support his tariffs, I support his immigration policies, but when it comes to this, we really should have a president who is willing to just say, you know what, Tim, we haven't always gotten along, but we're all Americans. This is a tragedy. We are here for you in any way you can. The problem is we don't have enough people like that. We immediately line up in our partisan camps. I'm going to give you a few examples. So I put this on Twitter. I basically said exactly what I'm saying here. I said, look, we have to be able to say that this is bad behavior, that Donald Trump can't act like this, okay? That he should just make a call to Tim Walz, be a big person, act presidential. Let me just read you a couple of the responses that came in. I'm quoting here. You know what's really disgusting? Walz's rhetoric that likely led one of his own to murder fellow Democrats. Spare me the pearl clutching. Here's another one. Don't put this on Trump. Walz has been no angel either. This happened in his state. He should be groveling. Here's another one. There's no point to making a call. Walz is busy trying to blame Trump and cover up the killer's motivations. Here's one last one. Trump should not call Walz, who is a deranged degenerate. Okay, even if Walz is a deranged degenerate, which, look, I'm no Tim Walz fan, politically speaking. I think he didn't do a particularly good job as president, as vice presidential nominee, and I don't think he should run for president in 2028. Even if he's a deranged degenerate, you still call the governor of the state and you say, I'm sorry, this assassination of a political official happened. This is bad. What Tim Walz has said about Trump doesn't factor in here or shouldn't factor in here because we're all Americans and we can all agree that shooting someone, showing up to their house dressed as a police officer and shooting them in cold blood is bad, right? Right? Because everything isn't justified just because you think the other side aren't good people. Or because the other side, well, they would say the same thing about us. That's not what our expectation for political leaders and for each of us should be. Basic human decency should trump what political uniform we have on. If we continue down this road where everything is justified because, well, the other guy said something bad about me, or because, well, the other guy's not in my party, we are going to be in a really, really dark place. And I fear, judging from the responses here, that we may already be in the bad place. But look, Donald Trump, whatever you think of him, should not behave and react this way in the wake of a tragedy. He should not. I am not a partisan. I am not someone who hates Donald Trump. I really don't. I try to take every one of his actions and analyze it based on everything I know and everything I've learned and everything I've reported, just like I do with when Democrats say things. But I am telling you, this is absolutely corrosive for this country, for what we expect of our leaders, for how our leaders behave, and for the example it sets for everyone else. All right. Like I said, I don't like to rant often because I feel like you lose the power of the rant if you rant too often. But I am telling you, this is rant worthy. I hope you subscribe. I hope you comment and like this video. I hope you tell other people about it and spread the word about my channel. Thank you for listening. Take care.